Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and we're out of Mega May now. And I wanted to get back into anime, and funny enough, these next 2 weeks are going to be probably my favorite anime of the last year or so. And that will be the Apothecary Diaries and Frieren Beyond Journey's End. So, we'll start with the one that I prefer the most, not saying either is any better or any worse than the other, but this one caught me by absolute surprise. And the thing about it is you hear buzz for shows, and then whether stuff keeps up or doesn't keep up or anything like that. And these were the two. I don't know if they were the most popular. Like, you still have like sequels or the super high end stuff or anything super big or the shonen shows or anything like that. But Frieren was almost always considered like the best show of the season. And I'll talk about that next week. And then Apothecary was the one that was like underground, kind of like, okay, everybody's liking this. Why is everybody liking this? What is it about this that is attracting people? And then you keep going, and then you hear stuff like, oh my god, this main character is the best, or like, I remember some random poll they had, it was like, best historical whatever, you know, the period pieces and stuff like that, and Apothecary Diaries, whether it was recency bias or something, whether it was accurate or not, which I highly doubt it was, because it's fictional, ended up getting like second place or something like that. Under something like Golden Kamui or something. I don't know. But I was just like, all right. And this was after I started watching it and I understood, right? And then you would have like Frieren and Maomao and other polls and like, who's better than the other? And I was like, geez, fuck Christ, this is okay. Even for internet, you know, this is just like, okay, people are talking about this quite a bit and I wonder why. And you watch like the first episode of both and you're just like, oh, I get it. Sometimes something takes a while to really find its footing. Sometimes you'll find a show right away. This is one of those, like, if I know I like it, I'm gonna like it. It was not one of those 3-episode rule sorts of things. It was, can this thing stay as good as it is after episode 1? Because it's one of those things that is such a character-driven thing. Like, Frieren has enough characters and enough style that I think it balances itself out well and is gonna work out regardless. This show only works for one specific reason. And yeah, it has decent visuals and it's got a cool idea here hidden and everywhere. But really, you're watching this for one reason. And it's Maomao. And I could spend 15 or 20 minutes talking about how good Maomao is. And yeah, it's one of those things. It's crazy. It's one of those things where a character by themselves, whether the character, where it is, you know, even if a show is written specifically for that character, there's no guarantee that that character is going to translate and be as impressive as they are. And it turns out that Maomao ends up skirting some crazy line between absurdly comedic at times, super deadpan and serious, and unflinchingly scary as shit and street smart, all at the same time, and never does it feel misplaced. And that is the beauty of this show, is that it can kind of straddle a line between trying to be a history show, a historical period drama, court drama, you know, assassinations and machinations and junk, and then still just be like, this is just some girl doing dumb shit. You know, how does that make any sense? How does that work? And this is one of those examples where nothing about it should stand out compared to, say, Raven of the Inner Palace, which is what its closest approximation would be. But this is going for a more comedic version of that. And it succeeds mainly because it doesn't take itself all that seriously. But when it has to, it doesn't feel off the mark. There's shows like, say, Konosuba, where or even Spy Family, where it's just like, okay, you have a serious motive. And I would say Konosuba more than anything. Nothing they do is going to feel like it is important because nothing about the characters has ever been treated as important. And even if they have a moment of seriousness, 5 seconds later, you see Megumin have an explosion, of a nearby thing. And it's like, oh, we're back here. Or Kazuma yells at the screen or something dumb. Or Aqua gets drunk. You're never not watching a comedy. In this, Maomao is never not taken seriously, even with her goofiness. And that's a strength of where she's placed and what she's doing. So as a backlog, the first episode is she's working as an apothecary. So old school medicine person, potions and tinctures and all that jazz, whatever medicine used to be way back when, she's making it with her adoptive parent. And there's reason for that too. But yeah, suffice it to say, there are going to be kind of middle of the road spoilers here and there. I might mention spoilers just to get a gauge of the whole Maomao situation, but I'm not going to go too far into it. But Maomao gets kidnapped and sold to whatever. And, people make money off her, and that's great. What they didn't know was that she's not just an apothecary, she's like a live-in apothecary for a place known as Verdigrease House. And she kind of knows her way around the world, so she's no joke. Verdigrease House is like the leading brothel, basically, led by, a house mama who is just a bitch, and people known as the Three Princesses. And in this fictional world, it's based off of like really old school China. They're super high demand, super pure, super sought after and expensive. So there's kind of an agreement in there where Maomao is popular but doesn't have to be, and kind of hides. She hides the fact that she's, and it isn't even one of those like she's all that, she's super beautiful sort of situation. It's more that like she's trying to hide herself from would-be trouble, burglars, rapists, kidnappers, whatever. And so she hides whatever beauty she has. I mean, she's not going to compete with the high-end courtesans, but she was taught, what they do, how they do it, what the world is like around there. So she has this kind of a double life going on. And then she gets thrust into this court drama business. So she's sold to the court and doesn't know her place, and probably won't, and is just kind of treated as an afterthought, because in this society, if you're not of high standing or you're not beautiful enough or whatever, you're treated as dirt or a lady in waiting or something like that. So you're doing that. But turns out that there's been these like weird things going on in the palace, and therein lies kind of the main crux of what Maomao has to deal with. So you're learning about her, but you're also dealing with the court drama stuff, and the way it manifests is a bunch of different interwoven kind of, this person is related to this person or married to that, where that sort of court drama business. And that does drag. If you're into that sort of thing, this scratches the surface a little bit, but I don't think the dialogue ever loses its, because sometimes these court drama things, and this person's related to this, and they're part of this section of the world, and they're leading this thing, and they're the emperor's third fucking consort, and literally fucking him over and over, and shit like that. My last words there is more in line with what the dialogue is trying to be. Maomao just sits there and goes, oh, so she's fucking him. Okay, fine, I get it. Crude but understandable, but still the court drama stuff. Less involved. Again, the comparison to the Raven consort makes sense, but she herself doesn't have any powers or anything like that. It's less mystical and more, okay, well, fine, down to earth, street smart kind of vibe. And she's trying to find her place in it, and she has this thing where she has like immunity or not immunity, but tolerance to poisons because she just has a tendency for it, and you will see her just kind of gravitate to all these new things, like a kitten seeing a bunch of ball of yarn and all these fun little things. You know, it's just like a baby seeing all this cool shit for the first time. It's like, oh my god, what is all this? What is all this? He's just going nuts. So you see these sequences of her like having meme faces and junk, and that's where the comedy comes in, and she's just a lot of things that would probably drive off normal people. She's just like, I've seen this shit before. Where's the fun shit? Where's all the fun stuff? Where is it? Where's all the poisons? Let's make poisons. Let's do that. So she finds out about this stuff with lead paint in a couple of the concubines in the palace, and other people are just like, no, you're not involved. Go away, you know. But she finds out that she's good enough and to act as a poison tester. So she learns that stuff has been going on, and she's warning these people about poison in lead paint because we found out later on that lead is not good for us and we shouldn't be doing it. So she tries to warn people. One of the concubines, Gyokyo, takes the advice and ends up taking her under her wing. The other one, Lady Liwa, giant breasts and all, loses her kid. And it's mostly because her servants are just complete fucking morons. And it is around like episode 3 or 4, I forget which one they actually do this with, Maomao fucking flips her lid. She's talking to the servants, and she basically not only berates them, but practically abuses them because they're fucking idiots. And throws stuff at them and says, well, you want to choke on this shit and die? Be my guest. But I'm here to track this shit down and save her life. And if you don't get out of the fucking way, you're going to get punished too. It turns out, unbeknownst to everybody else, she has a backer, a bit of an admirer, I guess. And the other main character is Jinshi, and this super like amazing looking guy has just this high-end court position, and he just is infatuated with Maomao because she doesn't take his bullshit. Everybody else is just like, oh my god, he looks so beautiful, oh my god, he's so great, and he's pampered as fuck, even though he does have a tendency to understand situations from a street level perspective. He does not have Maomao's perspective, and she doesn't take kindly to his bullshit, and it turns, you know, he's trying to understand why she isn't just like completely subservient and whatever. So he gains a measure of respect and then understands that he can use his position to allow her to do things like fixing this lead paint situation, because if the concubine dies, well, everybody's out of a job, you know, because you have several concubines, but you still want the same ones that you had, I guess. That's kind of their job, you know. And, oh no, I got lead paint. Oh god, I'm going to make her beautiful. Yeah, but she's wasting away into nothing. And just the look on, like, Liwa's face and shit while she's really suffering. And then Maomao just taking the time, you know, because you spend a good 5 or 10 minute montage working through like the plan to get rid of the poisons and get her back on her feet, and then you recognize what she looks like afterwards, and you're just like, that's why she saved her. The Emperor is going to be happy. So let's just say Lady Liwa has assets. That's great. So Liwa ends up befriending Maomao. So it becomes a thing where she's not trying to assert her position. It's just more, that's what she knows. She's tasked with these responsibilities, and she's smart enough to kind of, you know, scan the situation and think, okay, this is kind of what's going on here. But she still has fun with it. She becomes Gyokyo's poison tester and is kind of tasked with that for almost everybody. But eventually, most of the servants and all the other things, they kind of understand that she's not an idiot and she's not to be trifled with, and noise about her grows. And, you know, again, she's not meant to be this, oh my god, Empress empress and, a concubine. Now she's staying in the background of things, and she's in on the court dramas and all the shit, but she's an apothecary. She's a tester. She helps advise people, and that's good enough. She's trying to earn wages and get out of this situation because she wants to go back to being an apothecary or back to Verdigre's house, basically do her normal job. So the first season is mostly about the Jinshi Maomao kind of fiddly court drama stuff with the concubines and whatnot, and learning how to go about dealing with these high-end officials and where their places are and how to kind of like make this work without drawing suspicion, doing Maomao stuff while learning about these little mysteries. What they tend to do with episodes is these 2 or 3 episode structures of, okay, we've got this little thing going on and we have a mystery that can't be solved. So can you solve it? Do you have the know-how of, okay, a street smart business person? Is it something related to, brothels or whatever? Is it related to, military work? What kind of stuff does that lead to as an apothecary? Do you have knowledge of medicines and potions and all this kind of stuff? And they go through it, but they don't like force the issue. That's the best part of it. They don't force anything. The court drama doesn't overtake Maomao being this down-to-earth person, and the dialogue never kind of goes away from being down-to-earth. And the show benefits because of that, because I get kind of dragged down when you go too far into, here's what this relationship meant with this one, and you have this sort of following on this side of the court drama, and then you marry into this part of the family, so you get this kind of political power, and this happened, and then something, that sort of thing gets... I was watching the Heike story earlier this week, and that was the sort of dialogue that would drive me insane, because who is this person? Why should I fucking care? Why are you, talking about this person went to fight this person in this battle of this thing? It's like, no, this is more like, it's a bit of a mystery show. It's a bit of a court comedy sort of thing. You get a little bit of everything, but it never loses sight of what it's trying to do. It's trying to give you more Maomao, more Jinshi, more of the concubines, and just enough of all of them so it doesn't detract from, okay, we've still got a mystery of the day, and then we might solve it with, it might have ramifications later or whatever. And I think in the second season, a lot of stuff kind of goes into it. But you gain these little appreciations for these little things that happen. And the beauty is this show, much like Frieren, actually had more episodes. It wasn't just 12 or 13. They went a full 24. And the second season is more kind of learning about Maomao's lineage and then trying to work around that, because they introduce a character known as Lacan, who just has this like weird... it's one of those like court officials who has a smile on their face, but they're a bit of a dick half the time. So a lot of the things in the second season or the second half of the season are related to whether he himself are involved in it or he himself is around it. And there's these little plots to get rid of people or to burn some storehouses or to do some other things that Maomao and Jinshi have to figure out while still evading Lacan. We find that Maomao is trying to avoid Lacan for reasons that are very apparent after a while, and they do a good job of building the reasons why. It's one of those things where if Jinshi tries too hard to get an answer out of Maomao, whether it's who is your biological father, or this person wants to stay with you, or what does it cost to do whatever in the Verdigre's house? How much does it cost to buy someone out of their service contract in a Verdigre's house? And then Maomao just sits there and I distinctly remember that I think they were in the process of or right before doing an episode where Jinshi's kind of out and about. He leaves the palace, gets dolled up into this like commoner's makeup, this fat suit kind of thing, so that he doesn't draw suspicion because he's super beautiful and you do that sort of thing, kind of celebrity-ish. And in the midst of doing all that stuff, he asks a question about Lacan, who's been looking for Maomao for some reason. And then as soon as Maomao hears the name, she gives this like perfect death stare. And just like the episode with the ladies in waiting and the lead paint, she flies off. And it doesn't happen all the time. Maomao does that 2 or 3 times through the entire show. But you end up getting reminded that there's just some things you don't want to talk with her about. Or something where you piss her off, she will fucking murder you or castrate you or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me. She has this force of personality despite being almost deadpan and yet comedic. It's frightening. Because, again, it's this suspension of disbelief. Does this person seem like this kind of person? Yeah, it does. The multiple sides to it, you learn that, okay, Jinchi's touched, stepped on a landmine there. Don't do it. So again, you get these times where Maomao just like, I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to bother with it. You're going to do what I say or you shut the fuck up, And that force of personality manifests again. But Lacan is still this ever-present thing in the second half of the season, and you get these little nuances of his character and how like he's involved but not really involved, but also involved, but he's a schemer, but he's also not. Why is he scheming? What's he doing with Maomao? Why is he trying to get her attention? The final few episodes are really, really good because they're not really about pulse pounding action or crazy set pieces. This show is not about like, fights and things like that. It is definitely a drama. It is definitely high court drama stuff, but will still challenge you to, when it needs to, it will tug at your heartstrings and do things and say things and show things that a lesser show would have failed at because it was trying too hard to be a court drama or too hard to be a comedy. This straddles that line because, much like Maomao herself is just such an engrossing character, the show kind of feels better than it is. I said the same thing about Holo and Lawrence in Spice and Wolf. The dialogue itself, the trading sequences, the stuff like that can only get you so far. If you're in the show for the economic bit, that's fine, but really the show is about Holo and Lawrence just trading barbs back and forth and slowly building a relationship, and then the economic stuff is aside that. This is kind of the same vibe. Maomao is such an intriguing character that she elevates this show from kind of a basic mystery / court drama, whatever, to being something that is appointment viewing. And you're watching it for them. Jinchi and some of the other characters are good, but Maomao is the reason this show succeeds at all, and then is elevated to the popularity that it has. That is the strength when you have a character that is such an engrossing thing. And it's rare. It's rare that you have. You always have to make sure your main character is important, but you always, you can never be too sure. You can never be too sure that what you're doing is good enough or is going to be strong enough to succeed. Apothecary Diaries is, so popular. It's getting a second season already. It's going to be next year. And this is another one of those that's like, give me more of it. It was the same thing with like Spy Family. It's like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, give me more of that. I watch so many shows. It's hard to get like wholly invested in something. And even harder for something to just succeed on almost every level that I put it in like this rarefied air, because I don't do like number scales or stars or bullshit like that. I do that for like, my anime list or whatever, just so I can keep track of, okay, I really, really like this versus, I liked it, but it kind of fell off. This is the sort of show that if you like Maomao and it's great, you're just gonna love it, and it's not gonna get any better, not gonna get any worse. It's always gonna be really fucking good. If it's not your thing, or Maomao and her court drama stuff does not interest you, you're not going to get into it. But I think if people like a little bit of high court stuff with a lot of comedy, and a more kind of grounded appeal, this is kind of that perfect straddling the line. This is not going to be, hey, I'm going to fight this thing, and the dialogue is just going to be kind of, stiff as a board. They do enough in almost every area that everything works, and I think this is one of those things that succeeds on almost every level because it's not trying to be everything, but it's also not trying to go down one extreme path. It stays comfortable in what it's trying to be. A one-character show that everything revolves around, but that one character makes everything work. Because without her, this would not work at all. I guarantee it. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode. And, like I said, next week is going to be Frieren. Speaking of shows where the characters make everything work, but in a different way. Frieren works on other levels in different ways. And, again, I can't really say which one is better or worse. I prefer Apothecary, but again, it's like splitting... it's like apples and oranges. It's a different sort of situation. But we've got Theatrhythm, we've got fishing in JRPGs, Kemono, Jihen, other things. What I'm also adding to the list is soon to come up is going to be the start of the, I think it's second or third. No, it's going to be the third year. The start of the fourth year. So third anniversary would be my guess. And I finished Sailor Moon Crystal. And I still need to coordinate with Lee on this, but we'll probably have more than enough time because it's not until the end of July. But we finished Sailor Moon Crystal, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would, to be honest. So it'll be another one of the Fruits Basket sort of scenarios where we'll chat back and forth about it. And like I said, I think Sailor Moon Crystal is actually better than I thought it would be. So we'll get to that as well. So there's tons and tons of stuff. I've not run out of anything. I'm not running out of material for years. So I'll be doing stuff for years, hopefully. But that'll do it for me. And I'll see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.